at TGS, they're showing off Resident Evil Revelations 2. This is the first time they've actually ever showed it off. It's the sequel to the original, which came out last year. It started out on 3DS, and then it was ported to PC and all sorts of consoles. So in the sequel, because we both got to play it, I'm curious is if you think it's pretty much along the lines of the Revelation series.
Well, okay, there are a lot of changes, but yeah, first and foremost, the Revelation series is kind of set up as this more of like a straightforward and simple approach to Resident Evil. You compare that to something like Resident Evil 6, which sort of implemented all these like various melee attacks and these really complex systems that are like really action-oriented, and like this game has some of that, but it's much closer to the original Resident Evil and like maybe like the first 3 or 4 titles in the series. We're going back to Claire Redfield, and we're joined by Moira Burton, who is the daughter of Barry Burton. He was the sort of like, I don't want to say the father figure, but he was kind of like the old veteran in the original Resident Evil game. You know, Claire is sort of like the professional, like she's been doing this for a long time, and these two wake up in this cell, like they were at a party and someone like abducted them. They wake up in this cell and they have no idea what's going on. There's people screaming, all this crazy shit happening. Claire's pretty cool and collected. She's like been through this sort of thing before. Moira isn't necessarily scared, but she's definitely more like reactionary, and like for example, she uses like really vulgar terms for things. Like, what in the cock was that? And like the subtitle reads with like all capital letters. It's
and even if you're vulgar, like that's such an obscure phrase to use. I wonder if like that will actually stay in the final version. It's a very weird dialogue for her to use, and I actually kind of found her a little off-putting when I played it. Like Moira's character was constantly like, oh no, I don't use guns, not after the incident. And it was a very, like, she's an interesting character. We'll see where they go with her, but I mean, at this stage, she definitely is a high contrast to the character you play.
Yeah, the gameplay is still simple, but her characterization is over the top, which I think that Resident Evil should never be over the top. Like, it always is best, unless we're talking about Wesker, but no, the series is always best when it kind of it maintains this even tone. But one of the interesting things they're doing with the game is they're releasing it in episodic format. The original Revelations had this sort of built-in episodic format, but it was released at once. And it was made that way because it's a portable game. You're only going to spend so much time playing it per day. So it was a really good way to kind of divvy up the game. This time they're distributing it chapter a week, I believe, and it's about 2.5 hours per chapter, which is a pretty interesting way to do it. They were saying that like this is a really good way to like give people cliffhangers and sort of get them, you know, like doing the whole water cooler chit-chat, like talking about like, oh, what do you think's going to happen next, you know?
It's paid off for a few other developers, so we'll see like how the episodic format plays out. And something else I want to ask you about are those weird, creepy monsters in this one. They've done something kind of a little creepier with the vibe. You're kind of like stuck in this, kind of looks like a cell type place.
Well, it's an island. It's like this weird facility.
Yeah, and these large monsters are kind of coming out, but they're humanoid. Like they look like a version of a human.
They are humans, so they're known as the Afflicted. And like, essentially, like this facility seems like it's a place where people are being somehow changed from standard people into these really violent, aggressive things known as the Afflicted. And talking to the director of the game, they're not zombies. It's not a virus that you can spread. So it's not like one of them gets it and then like they pass it on. It's some other thing. And I'm kind of wondering like how it works. You know, like there's this other mechanic where you wear like this wristband and it sort of displays the characters' fear levels.
They hinted towards it a little bit, didn't they? Where they're saying, "Oh, we can see your fear level on it. It gets to a redder color based on your fear." And it seems like it's possible that has an impact on possibly how you become, but it hasn't been proven or said.
Yeah, and I asked them for more details, and they really wouldn't get into it. An interesting note is I asked them, you know, Claire is back, Barry Burton's daughter is back. Were we going to see any other characters from the series make a return? And, you know, a little smile and a chuckle. They're like, oh, well, you know, we don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, you know, I think fans of the series will be pleased with what we're doing. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to look forward to. I think Moira is going to be a lot for people to kind of get over. But, you know, I don't think she necessarily ruins the game. I think it'll be pretty interesting to see how it works out. And, you know, it adds a co-op element, which really wasn't in Revelations, the original. It's sort of something that was in 5 and 6. So we'll see how that works out. It could be pretty good.
I guess we'll have to see.